welcome to the mini film review. I've just come back from watching Sound of Freedom. So it's been a pretty long day today. I was doing a review of the morning papers. I've been doing that for the last 5 months now on Talk TV. And I was hoping there was a story in there about the Sound of Freedom, because it has to be something that's ideally coming overnight or breaking news this morning. There wasn't, but we still had some very interesting discussions. Simon Cowell, Simon Cowell recommending therapy, which was fantastic. Shirley Ballas spilling the beans on some of the Strictly shenanigans and ballroom dancing secrets. Also talked about the story with the FA and the FA boss. His mum is on hunger strike. I also wanted to talk about resurgence of the high street, looking specifically at M&S bucking the trend, and some shady shenanigans in Chernobyl. So that was this morning. So the day starts at about 4:30 because you've got to get up and go through the papers. So there wasn't anything in there about the Sound of Freedom. However, that said, let's get kind of down to it. So I'm going to break this down into a couple of sections, because there were things that I was reading about it, because of course it was released in the United States before it was here in the UK. As I understand it, the general release for the UK is the 1st of September. Today is the 31st of August. So I went and saw it today at The View. So let's begin. So we're going to have a little bit of a structure to this one. Let me call up my titles. Right, where are we going to start? So let's start here with the story. So the story, if you've been following this, you will know it's about child trafficking. Some of the reviews that I read were complaining about the topic, almost saying that you shouldn't be shedding any light on this topic, which didn't really make any sense to me, because there aren't many things in terms of the genre of film where there hasn't been a movie about it, where there isn't a series about it. So I'm not really sure what the beef was with this one, but the story was following Tim Ballard, who worked for an agency, retrieved someone's child, and then that led him on a completely different path in terms of not just wanting to solve those cases and catch the paedophiles, but also then looking at the other side of the coin. So that's the kind of basic premise of the story, based on a true story. Of course, it's cinema, so you're not going to, seriously, if there was a scene where somebody was doing paperwork for like 19 hours, that would make for a little bit of a dull movie. Come on, let's be honest now. So, of course, there's going to be some dramatization to bring it to life on the screen, but essentially based on real life experiences. So the story itself was really interesting. For me, it was compelling, even though I knew the premise of the film. Seeing it unfold, watching all of the twists and turns, I thought it was fantastic, and we were all gripped. Those of us in the cinema, complete silence. Sometimes you're at the cinema and people nattering and talking and putting their phone. None of that. There was none of that. And at the end, which for me is oftentimes the mark of a good film, and I've heard celebrities say that as well, that they will go to a cinema, they will be in the cinema incognito, so nobody knows they're there. And if people applaud at the end and laugh at the right bits, or at the right bits, that's a sign for them. And there was a spontaneous round of applause at the end of the film. So I will take that as a good sign that it wasn't just me who enjoyed it, but my fellow cinema goers did as well. But the story, I would say, was well told. It kept us gripped. Well, let me talk for myself, can't talk for anyone else. It kept me gripped from beginning to end. And I think it was very, very well told. So that's the first thing I'm going to say about the story. Where should we go next? Yes, cinematography. I thought it was beautifully done as well. The scenery, the camera work, the colors, the detail. There's a particular scene. All I'm going to say is the stomping of the feet, where they have the girls. I think that was when they were in Colombia. Just those little things. And when they did the panning across the rooftops, for me, the cinematography was absolutely beautiful. It was almost as though this is one you could probably imagine it being in 3D in some of those scenes, the riverboat scenes. The kind of going through the what looked a bit like the Amazon jungle, just really fantastic cinematography. So not only was the story interesting and compelling, the way the story was told visually was also, you know, keeping you hooked, because there were times you kind of felt like you were in that Jeep with them, for example. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but for me, the cinematography was really beautiful. I really like the one. Yes, I'm sure there's an official term for it. I'm going to call it the low camera shots. So when you're driving it, so the camera is actually under the Jeep, and when you're in the water, it's almost like it's on the front of the speedboat. So I really loved the way they did the cinematography, because that sort of brought you into the whole thing as well. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to actually, let me just go in order in terms of where they are. So save me jump around. So again, there was lots written. What was it? The Rolling Stone. I couldn't help but do a little review of the Rolling Stones review a couple of weeks ago. It was like, what? But the press I was reading when this film was first released in the United States, it was almost written like it was an insult and a bad thing. Oh, it's a faith-based movie, faith-based movie. Well, I have to be honest, maybe I was not paying attention. There was one scene where, I was going to say Jim Caviezel, Tim Ballard, but Jim Caviezel is the actor, so Tim. But there was one scene where, let's just Jim Caviezel, Tim Ballard, go with whichever one you want, main protagonist, let's go with that, was talking to someone else about how they got into the trafficking game. And the person he was talking to, the person Tim Ballard was talking to, said that, you know, he was almost like called by God. He had one of those epiphany moments, was called by God. That was the only time I think I heard the word God. Now, as I said, I could have just been caught up in other things and looking at the cinematography and really enjoying. Hey, are you going to watch it on Saturday? Asked my sister. Brilliant. It's seriously, let me know what you think. We must talk afterwards, because I loved it. But yeah, you'll enjoy it. Oh yeah, you're right. Actually, it's the £3 cinema day. I didn't know that when I booked at the time. But anyway, I wanted to see it early. But Mandy, really enjoy it. I really want to hear what you think. But yeah, good stuff. So in terms of, sorry, just so you can see what I'm referring to, my sister's going to watch it on Saturday. So in terms of the faith-based movie, it is a faith-based movie. Jim Caviezel, Tim Ballard, they are men of faith. So I actually don't see why that's a problem. Again, we all have our own we have our personal taste, don't we, you know? So for example, I spend a fair bit of time when I'm getting ready in the mornings, I often watch Highway to Heaven. It's obvious that that's about God. It's about Michael Landon. He's an angel. Love that show. I also love Sue Thomas FBI. Sue Thomas FBI, as the name suggests, it's a detective show. Sue mentions God. I think she probably, you know, if give us 5 episodes, God probably comes up in 3 or 4 of those. I've never heard anybody complaining about that. So I'm still confused now, having seen the film myself. Look, if every 5 minutes they were, you know, stopping and doing a Bible reading, I would say, okay, you know, it wasn't that. I heard the word God once. I'm going to see it again. I will listen out more closely, but I think I maybe just caught up in the story and the cinematography. But the whole thing about the faith-based movie, faith-based, kept going on about it in the reviews. I'm like, I don't get it. So what if it's a faith-based movie based on this topic, on this subject matter? I think a higher power is needed for this when you know how deep this goes. So maybe of all the things you could think of, I can't think of probably anything better than bringing some faith and God into that, and humanity, because that is what this whole subject requires. So I'm just going to have to skip past that one, because I cannot even get my head around why a faith-based movie would be a problem. There were no graphic scenes, and actually for me, because I one of the reviews that I read, they were saying that they thought this film was a bad idea because it was basically fodder, let me put it that way, for pedophiles, as in they would watch that and be titillated by it. Look, they could probably do that. They're going to have to, they're going to make them work for that titillation. They're going to make them, you're going to have to use your imagination. You're going to have to jump in there and put yourself in it. And quite frankly, somebody could be titillated, if that's their thing, by just seeing a child walk past them in the street and then their imagination will go wild. So there were no, so for people who are worried, because on the way out I was chatting to a couple of people saying, hey, did you enjoy your film, what were you watching? They watched the Equalizer, Denzel Washington, they said it was really good. Actually, Mandy, I might see that one on Saturday. So there was when I said about the film I watched, the woman she said, oh, I've heard about that. And then, you do that little bit of a recall back, and I said there was nothing graphic in it at all. Of course, like when there's a scene where the curtains close, so now logically what will be happening, but you have to use your imagination. And actually, it's probably not a great comparison, but it reminded me a little bit. I love Colombo as well. This is all too much information, but I love Colombo. And one of the things about Colombo, it's very rare that you might see somebody going towards someone with a rock, but you don't actually see anything else after that, but you now extrapolate what's happened. It took that kind of view and approach. So the criticism leveled at it as saying it was kind of titillation and paedophiles would go and see this and be turned on by it. Yeah, they probably could, but they made them work for that titillation. So there was nothing graphic in it at all. I can think of one scene, a hospital scene, but again, it was just, there was the word lacerations and sexual abuse. That was it. So nothing graphic as far as I could see. So if you've been worrying about going to see it and thinking, oh my gosh, you're going to come out with that imprinted on your mind, chill, relax, you're all good. Now, one of the things we're talking, when I watched some interviews with the director as well, and the director kept talking about Jim Caviezel's eyes and saying that much of the story was told with his eyes. And I totally see what they mean by that now. Very moving. I would love to know, actually, if I were ever to sit down and interview him, I would want to know, was it the old onion trick, or was the magnitude of the situation enough to invoke that reaction? I'm going to guess the magnitude of the situation is enough to invoke those reactions. But yes, now I get what they were saying in terms of very emotive, the expression. So the eyes definitely have it. Now, there was also a touch of humor in the film as well. All I'm going to say is the kiss and the doctor. I'm going to leave it there. But when those scenes come up, you'll know what I mean. But we had a little bit of a giggle. There was a touch of humor in it as well, which I really liked because it is a potentially very, very heavy subject. So those were the kind of key things. I think I've covered everything. So let's see. The musical score. I'm a fan of Hitchcock. And if you think of it, I can hear it in my head, Psycho. Hitchcock managed to convey, a bit like the Colombo thing, but, next level in terms of, mystery genre and all the rest of it and violence. But Hitchcock managed to convey emotions, tell a story with the musical score. Very skillful. If you ever go back and watch any of those movies, you could actually watch the movies with your eyes closed and you'd still probably jump at various points because of the score. And one of the things I think they did very well in this film was, we even had a bit of reggaeton. It was like, it was very well done. The music was woven in beautifully and added to the cinematography and the storytelling and the camera work. I would say that putting all of those factors together, really seriously, because there are times you sometimes watch a film and little things irk you, or like it's a bit disjointed. This one pieced together beautifully. Now, a couple of things in terms of requests. So let me go there first of all. Let me show you the first request. Well, actually, let me take you back. At the movie, I will admit, I'm one of those people, when the movie's finished, it's not a marathon for me, or a sprint. People are like, oh, I've got to get on to the next thing. They're off. When I'm at the movies, I actually quite like to savor it, watch the credits. I remember watching the credits once, and somebody's name that I know came up. So I do like to watch the credits. And in this movie, stay till the end, because if you're someone you're like on a running track, you will miss something. So a little, oh, hang on, can I move myself? Let me, oh, where can I put myself? Let me just see what happens if I do that. Yeah, so there we go. You'll see something come up on the screen. There's a little countdown, and it's a 2-minute countdown. So it says special message. So we're at the 46, what's that, 46-second mark. So at the end of that countdown, Jim Caviezel then comes on stage. And there is a couple of minutes where he is then speaking about the film, about the experience. He's encouraging people to share this. He shares a little bit about the fact that the film was made already years ago, and they said all sorts of obstacles and obstructions were put in their way. And so he makes a request to see it in the cinema to get that full experience of it. Of course, when you see it in the cinema, it helps fund the movie and the cause and everything that they want to do. He also makes another request, so let me bring that one up on screen as well. Here we go, and I've checked it and it should work. Let me put myself down there so that it's a bit bigger. So if you scan that QR code, you can actually, even if you're not going to go and see the movie yourself, or maybe you've seen it. And he said, look, for those of you who are financially able, what you can do, use the QR code. It will take you to the Angel Studio site, and you can pay it forward. You can actually buy a ticket for someone so they can see the movie free of charge, but it's still been paid for. So that's one of the things you can do. There was an aspect of the film, this is all at the very end, this comes on at the end after the credits. I'm not sure who all these names are. These may be people who were involved with the film. So if you do know, please let me know, put it in the comments. It may be they were involved with the film. This may be the families of people that were helped. These may be the supporters of the film. These may be people who have written a review. I'm not sure, but this went on for several minutes, all of those names just going up the screen. But and Jim said at the time, he said, I know it's an odd thing to say when you're in a movie theater, and I remember the film is over. This is not during the movie. But he said, if you could pull out your phone, photograph this QR code and share it with people, that would be great. So I can do what I'm told. So I pulled out my phone, I photographed the QR code, and it takes you, I believe, to the Angel Studios site. And yeah, the film, and I think maybe because sexual abuse is something, childhood sexual abuse, etc. That's something I've been pulling, even just like, yeah, something, but so it's not it's not something that has me kind of rolled up in a ball, been there, done that, all the rest of it, did that for 32 years. It's a field that I've been working in since the year 2000. So I think maybe the reason I haven't come out of their shell shock, like, oh my God, I can't believe this stuff is going on, because it's like, I already know it's going on, lived it, breathed it, been there, got the t-shirt. The scale and magnitude of this issue, the problem, they put some statistics up at the end of the movie as well. And one of the points that they make, and I've seen it in the interview, so I'm not giving you any spoilers here, is they were saying that the reason child trafficking is worse than drugs is that you could sell that bag of coke. Of course, you can split it and cut it and all the rest of it and mix it. But essentially, you can sell the cocaine once, but you could sell a 5-year-old child 10 times a day for 10 to 15 years. Just let that sink in. Just let that sink in. And according to the movie, the United States is like the hub for this in terms of customers and clients. So this is massive. And when you actually watch the film, one of the things, when I was sitting there and just kind of thinking, oh my God, how does one come back from that? If you really allow yourself to think about the magnitude of all of this, it's major. It's a major issue. one of the things I know to be true of movies is they will often start a conversation about things. So one of the big conversations that like was hitting social media a couple of weeks ago was Painkillers. That was a program on, and I was going to say documentary. It's kind of a documentary, but you know, made it into a series for entertainment. But that was about the drug industry and one particular family. That sparked a really fantastic conversation about the way that the drug industry behaves. That case is actually going on now, right this minute, even though the film dates back to the 1970s, 80s and follows the timeline of that. So has sparked some really interesting conversations and discussions. Tinder swindler, that was another one. Oh my God, that was just mind blowing in terms of that, just lifting the lid on what can potentially happen and allowing people to see what can go on, raising awareness. So hopefully alarm bells would ring if you found yourself in a similar situation. So to now start cherry picking and going, well, it's all right to talk about that and it's all right to have a conversation about that, but I'm not going to, it doesn't make any sense to me. And the fact that it's a difficult, challenging, human destroying subject, I think that's all the more reason to be having those conversations. Because one of the things that they said at the again when we were in that bit with the Jim Caviezel was talking to camera at the end, one of the things that kind of really shocked me, I would say, is when they talked about the Jim Caviezel was saying there are more people in slavery now than when slavery was legal. And we know, well, some of us know the extent of the slave trade, the African slave trade. So just again, look up those numbers. More people enslaved now than when slavery was legal. So if it's your first foray into this particular topic, it might blow your mind a little bit. You may have to take a breath. But it's not because it's graphic, it's just because of the magnitude of the situation. But from my perspective, I loved the movie. Really important topic. I feel the story was told really well. One of the complaints that was leveled against it in the reviews that I read when it first came out was oh God, it was like, what? Sorry, I'm just relaying what I read in my head, but you don't know what I read. But one of the complaints was, well, they only focused on this and they showed they didn't show all the ways that somebody could be abducted, or they showed too many ways that somebody could. And I was like, hold on a minute. It's a 2 hour, it's just over 2 hours. It's a 2 hour movie, 2 hours, 10 minutes, I believe. You really expect them in a 2 hour movie to show the whole range and gamut of this massive industry? It would, seriously, if they try to do that, it will just be a really disjointed series of just random clips. So the complaint was that they only focused on one aspect and on a couple of children. And I'm like, dude, it's a 2 hour movie. They're telling a particular story. That's like turning up at a Save the Whales convention and berating everyone and complaining that they're not talking about the dolphins and the swordfish and the flying fish. And it's like, is the save, do you know what I mean? So coming at it with that as well, I thought that was a little bit ridiculous, because they chose a particular aspect of the story. They did show, and it looked like it was real footage. Again, I have to speak to the director about that, but it looked like it was real footage of child abductions, which gives you a flavor of how this can happen. But the complaint that was leveled, that oh, it only focused on this and it didn't cover this and it didn't cover that and it shouldn't show this and it shouldn't show that because it gives people the wrong idea. It's like, this is prolific. People need to see what's happening. Forewarned is forearmed. And I saw something really scary on Facebook yesterday, where parents set their children up. Somebody set up a fake account, lured the children out, but it was the parents and the law enforcement were behind it. They wanted to just see how the children would react. One parent grabs the son. He's just about to go into this building, rucksack on, a bottle of wine in his rucksack, because the person who had lured him there said, you know, honestly, this was real stuff. If a parent watches that, it may raise their awareness when they think their little angel is doing nothing at all. So for me, something that is well done, that is respectfully done, that is told in a way that brings home to the magnitude without traumatizing the audience, I say bravo, more of that, please, because these are important conversations to have. So that's my little review of the film. I loved it. Really, 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 really enjoyed it. And I do hope that it continues to spark this conversation, because I'm guessing also, particularly as there are so many people who are undocumented, I'm guessing also this is the tip of the iceberg. And even though those numbers are huge, there's probably a whole underbelly to this that has not even been exposed as yet. So for me, highly recommend it. Tell your friends. I went to the View in Watford, which is, oh, let me just see. If you know Watford, you will know this one. There we go. So I was, sorry, the Sign World. Sorry, View. The View is the other one in North Watford. But I was at Sign World, right in the centre of town. I was going to say the Harlequin, into Atria, depending on your era, but you know where that one is as you just walk into the shopping centre. So that's where I saw it. And for those of you who are watching this on the 2nd of September 2023, if you're watching this in real time, it's £3 cinema day. So what you may do is see if you can bag yourself a ticket for the £3 day. If you don't want to pay, I think my ticket was, after all the added extras and all the rest, I think it was just under £11. So if you wanted to still see the film and you wanted to spread your budget, then the 2nd of September may be the day. But yeah, I just want to say thank you to Angel Studios for persevering, for finally letting that film see the light of day. And I hope people around the world are watching. I hope this sparks a conversation. I know there are people who probably in higher places who don't want it to spark a conversation for reasons which I'm sure will be obvious. But let's hope that it lifts the lid on this, because when you see the film, gives you a little snapshot into what people are living, what they're going through, and some of the repercussions of that. All right, I shall leave that there. Thank you, thank you, thank you for watching. If you have seen the film, please feel free to put your comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts as well. I would love to hear what maybe stood out for you, what you took away from the movie. But for now, I will leave it there. It's Marilyn Devonish, the NeuroSuccess coach from transformationstm.com. And I would say go and see this film. It's an important piece of work, and I hope it really does spark a good, deep conversation. And not just conversation. I can hear Elvis now. A little less conversation, a little more action, please, because this is one that definitely needs action as well. All right, catch you all later. Wishing you all fabulous rest of your morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are in the world.